You are listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I am your host, Celine Yeager. Each week, I bring you advice from athletes, scientists, researchers, and other experts to help you feel and perform your best, no matter what your hormones are doing. This show is a production of Live Feisty Media. Hello, strong, feisty women. I hope you all are well. So, we talk a lot here about the importance of lifting heavy for our muscles and our bones and our brain and our heart health, but that's really just the beginning because being stronger opens the door for all kinds of new adventures that we might otherwise never have tried because it gives us more confidence in what our bodies can do. And this week, we have on a guest who is all about making midlife women strong for adventure, Shawn Brokemond. For those of you who have read Tough Broads by Caroline Paul, who was on the show several weeks ago herself, you'll know Shawn as the base jumper in the beginning of the book. And as a 56-year-old Black woman who, until very recently, was a kindergarten teacher, Shawn pretty much smashes all of the stereotypes we might have about what base jumpers, quote unquote, look like. And that's not all Shawn does. She mountain bikes, she trail runs, she does triathlon. Really, you name the sport, Shawn is on it. And her mission is to get more midlife women out there doing the same. So that's why she left her job. She left her teaching job, she got certified as a trainer, and she started her own training business called Sports Adventure. And I'll link that to the show notes so you can check it out, where she does exactly that. She trains people, especially midlife women, to get strong inside and out and to have more adventures. And we talk all about that in the show, as well as her frankly terrible 23-year struggle with menopausal symptoms, which, just as you think you can't be more incensed at our medical system, will definitely have you banging your head against the nearest hard surface. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. Okay, as always, give us a follow on Instagram and Facebook at Feisty Menopause. Head on over to feistymenopause.com and sign up for my free weekly newsletter for 40 plus active women. And thanks, as always, for the continued kind ratings and reviews. Lots of love right back at you. Quickly, before we get to it, my 92 optimal sleep score last night was brought to you by our sponsor, Lagoon Sleep. Seriously, their cooling memory foam pillow, I have the Otter, provides unparalleled head and neck support without any folding, scrunching, punching, fussing. Just put your head down and good night, Irene. So thanks, Lagoon, for your continued support. I appreciate you. Okay, enough of me. Let's have a few words from our awesome sponsors and get on with the show. Okay, Shawn, I am so psyched to talk to you because I loved Caroline Paul's book, Tough Broads, and I had her on the show, and then I learned that you're a friend of a friend and you're in the book, so I was very stoked to talk to you. So I'm glad you agreed to be with us today.
Cool. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
How did you and Caroline Paul meet?
So I met Caroline through a mutual connection. I was a teacher for 25 years, and one of my kids' parents
Mm-hmm.
introduced us.
Oh,
She's a writer, and Caroline's a writer. They know each other in that world, and so she connected us.
well, she opens the book with you with a story that is just pretty delightful. I mean, it's you and a friend and your husband, and you're doing this night base jump off a very high wall. And the beauty of the story, and I'm sure that's why she uses it, is that the whole thing kind of smashes a lot of stereotypes all in one place, right? I mean, you think of base jumping as a young white male dude thing maybe to do, and you're a
Absolutely.
56-year-old Black woman. So, how did you get into this this sport? Like it's like that I can't even, we'll talk about exactly what, but how did you get into it?
Well, let's see. So it started out with just a skydive, which I didn't even,
Just a skydive.
yeah, just a skydive. I wasn't quite sure what that was all about, but my husband got me a gift to go skydiving.
Oh,
And I
nice.
was like, yeah, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun. Tell me more about that." And I totally thought he was gonna go with me,
And he
and,
didn't?
he didn't
Oh,
actually yeah, he didn't actually do the skydive that day. Like, I thought we were both going up there to skydive, and he was like, "No, actually, I wanna take lessons." And so his motivation for skydiving was he wanted to base jump. He wanted to, I mean, it's kind of good if you've done some skydiving before you base jump, but I think there are people who have not done that and just gone straight into base jumping. But so yeah, so that was his whole motivation for doing the skydiving. And so I did that jump, loved it. And I was like, I want to do that again. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to sign up for, to get my skydiving cert. Let's do it. And so that's how that got started. And then, 25 jumps or so later, we go on a road trip with some friends to the Perrine Bridge in Idaho
uh-huh.
for a base jump. And I was like, well, I'm definitely not going to do that. But I'll definitely go and support. I totally want to see you do your first base jump because that's kind of like what he always wanted to do,
Yeah.
right? And so we were all there, and the first day he does a few jumps, and it was really exciting. And I'm like, yeah, this looks really cool. But I was still thinking like, no, no way. I don't want to. They asked, my friends were like, are you going to jump? And I was like, no, I'm definitely not doing that. But then the next morning, I don't know what happened between that night and the next morning. I said nothing to no one about it, but I think I was processing, right? And just trying to figure out if that was something I wanted to try. And I felt like, okay, this is my opportunity. We're all here to base jump all weekend long.
Oh, wow.
I should try it. Yeah. And so I found myself the next day walking out onto the bridge with the rig on, and I'm going on my first space jump. So it was pretty incredible. We were lucky. We had two very amazing instructors who were kind of like our mentors through skydiving, and Dan's got mentor for base jumping. Dan is my husband,
Hmm.
and um, so yeah, we had two of the best coaches out there to guide us through this adventure, and I was like, I'm gonna try it. So I did it. It was
Wow.
crazy.
So for the unfamiliar, please explain, like I mean, not people are going to pick up with context cues that you're jumping off of things, but please explain like what base jumping is. Like I have a very hard time fathoming it because I went bungee jumping. I was like 25. And the only reason that I jumped is because I was the only woman in the group. But I was not going to be the only person who didn't jump. But
That's right.
yeah, please explain what base jumping is.
Yeah. So base jumping is when you have one rig as opposed to skydiving where you have two. So you have a
And a rig being a
parachute,
parachute?
right? A
Okay,
parachute, and in your skydiving rig you have a backup parachute so that if something goes wrong, you can cut away that one and pull your reserve. It's called a
gotcha.
reserve. And in base jumping, you just have one parachute. So because it's a shorter
'Cause there's
it's
no
a shorter
time.
jump.
Yeah.
There's no time to have a second piece of equipment to save you. So yeah, and you jump off of a stationary object, so like a bridge or a
And
cliff or an antenna.
oh, so that's what it's like bridge antenna.
Bridge, antenna, span, and earth.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So build it, yeah, building. You can jump off of a building. People jump off of high buildings.
So at a time
Yeah,
of life when a lot of women talk, and I have talked myself as a mountain biker about being more fearful or having more anxiety, like you seem to be going in this opposite direction. Like, what is it like? Like, what do you love about it? Like, what is talk me through, like, what that feels like when you are approaching a jump and then you execute.
yeah. Um, so I'm sweating
I
just
know, it
thinking
makes
about
me
it.
my stomach is like a butterfly and just yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, believe it or not, kind of afraid of heights. And that was one of the things I thought I would overcome my fear of heights if I started, skydiving and base jumping. Skydiving is way different. When you jump out of the airplane, it's like you're jumping into air. It's not, you don't get that stomach drop
Mm,
like a roller coaster, right? It's
yeah.
different. Base jumping is even more, a little bit more different because it's when you jump off of something that's not moving, right? The object that you're jumping off of, you have this moment of free fall that's like super quiet, and you're just falling. You really feel like you're falling.
Oh, wow.
Then, yeah, after a few seconds, you feel the wind or, the air in your face. So it's like you've got 3 or 4 seconds of this free fall that's silent and still, and you're just dropping, right? And then all of a sudden, this air just rushes and you can feel it. And that's when you track away from the object that you're jumping off of, because you want to get away from that object so
And
that you
how do you
don't hit
track
it.
away from it?
You kind of, it's a body position that you make yourself into like a wing. So you
But you're
like
not in a
I'm
special suit. You're just wearing whatever
I'm
you're.
not, no, I'm not, no,
Okay.
I just jump slick. They call it slick. It's like old school.
Yeah.
You just wear whatever you wear, jeans, sweatshirt, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of people do wear tracking suits. And we actually bought tracking suits early on when we first started base jumping and thought we would go that route, and then decided, nah, a tracking suit, it makes you more aerodynamic.
Yeah.
It makes you go faster. And we just thought, you know what, this is, this is good. This is a good speed
But yeah.
as it is, right? Don't want to lose focus of why you're doing it. I mean, it's super fun. I I mean, it's funny. My husband likes to call me the reluctant base jumper because I am afraid every single time I walk up to a cliff or, a bridge or wherever we're jumping. But I think that's kind of makes sense, right? Like if you weren't afraid, something is maybe wrong.
Yeah. The will to
So,
live is very strong.
yeah,
Many of us.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
how
And
I felt. Yeah.
and that's exactly it. Like you're gonna save yourself, right?
Yeah.
And so you're gonna pull that, pilot chute and get that canopy above your head. And it's just such a thrill. I mean, it's yeah, it's it's hard to explain it actually, other than just the peacefulness, right? And the falling. It's just so cool. I mean,
How long
the
does the whole thing
the
take? Like,
expanse of everything.
can you take in the place as you're
Yes,
doing it?
you can after several jumps. Like you don't notice anything when you first jump. I mean, you're so keyed up and like, and there's a lot of different, people take different methods of when they're going to pull their, pull
Hmm.
their pilot chute, because it's like, the ground is coming up quickly. Right, depends on where you jump. That there's this bridge, sorry, not this bridge, there is a antenna that we jump off of that's like 2,000 feet in the air. I think we climb up to about 1,600 feet and jump from there. And on that tower there are all these lights that are flashing, and they go down so many feet, like I don't even know if it's 10 feet or, 100 feet, where the spacing of the lights. But my husband always watches for those lights as he's
Mm,
tracking away. You're kind of looking down, you're
hmm.
looking between your legs,
Hmm.
although your legs are straight. And he knows when he's going to pull, when he gets to like the, I don't know, whatever number light it is. I don't do that. I count seconds because I know, how long it takes before I need to open my parachute. So I'll count. But some people do different things. I have a friend that, would say that he likes to, when he feels like he needs to pull, he pulls. I'm like, I mean, that's a little scary for me. That's a little, yeah. But he's got thousands of jumps, so hundreds
Yeah.
of thousands of jumps. But yeah, so
So while you're
it's quite
standing
the
there
experience.
before you jump, is it like 1 for the money, 2 for the show? Like, how do you get to that? You know, like,
So that's a great question. So I count to three. And so sometimes it depends on, how long I've jumped, since the last jump, how nervous I am. But sometimes I like to be count down by my friends who are there. So because it's so hard to go, right? Like
I have to breathe.
exactly. So it's three, two, one, see ya. And then you go. We always say see ya because we'll see you down at the
Yep.
bottom. But yeah, so it's usually for me, it's like it's always a three count.
Mhm.
And then it makes it even better if someone counts me down and then I
Yeah,
go on three. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Oh, that's awesome.
yeah.
So let's rewind just a little bit, because when I did some research on you and everything I read, it sounds very much like you went to bed one night, a kindergarten school teacher, and you woke up the next and you quit your job and now you're base jumping. Like, did it actually work that way? Like, was there some other
Ah,
evolution? But
no,
listening to
I
how
mean,
that you base jumped, I mean, maybe you did just go to bed one night and been like, I'm done.
well, I did that. I did. No, the teaching thing, I had been contemplating, a couple years prior. I had taken a sabbatical. I had been teaching for about 22 years at that point, I think. And this, I thought like I was taking a sabbatical and I was trying to figure out what my next thing was, but I didn't really focus on my next thing on that during that time um, so much, right? So when and I just, it was so nice to just be off from work, and doing something different. We actually went to Argentina and lived there for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And I studied Spanish and, just like lived, right? And it was really nice. But when I came back, I was so rejuvenated and felt great that I was ready to just continue, right? To just go. And I think there was a policy that you weren't allowed to go, like leave that year anyway. If you
Yeah.
when you come back, you have to, yeah, stay for another year or two. But yeah, so then I went back to teaching again, and then it wasn't until a few years later that I actually woke up. I did wake up one morning. I had already signed my contract. I was already decided I was going back, but I don't know. I woke up and I was like, I'm not going back. I want something different. I want to do something different, and I wasn't quite sure what that was, but I knew I had to quit what I was doing in order to figure that out.
And
So
what
I
was it?
marched into work.
Oh, you
Well,
marched into it working at
well, I marched into work and told my boss that I was not going to come back, and the whole thing. And then I think over the next couple of months, I started to think like, okay, shit, I quit my job. Now I got to figure out what I am going to do. And I loved a couple years prior to that, to quitting. I had started working. What was I doing? I was um, a coaching a boot camp.
Hmm.
One of my former triathlete coaches asked me to take over this boot camp section and coach this section. And I had been taking his boot camp for years, and I knew how to do, like, I knew how to coach boot camp. Like I knew how to do the exercises and all that. But then I was kind of like, if I'm going to do this, I need to know the science behind like, why are we doing these squats and lunges and, what is it doing, for my specific muscle groups and so forth. So then I got my personal training certificate, went to school for that. And I loved it. I
Hmm.
was really um, excited. I love working with people. And so just that experience of coaching was really fun and exhilarating and just to, I don't know, it felt really good. I'm also an uber athlete myself, so um I yeah, it just fit really nicely with who I am and what I like to do. And everybody's always asking me, what do you do? You look so great. You're so fit, you're so fit. What do you do? So yeah, that just like worked out really well. And then I decided, I had a couple ladies when the boot camp was over. they wanted to continue, and so they asked if I would continue to train them, and that's kind of how my personal training business started. And I have a private gym where I train my clients at my house, and so they started coming, and it just grew from there. So it's really, really kind of lucky
Yeah,
that I didn't
yeah. I
have to do a
mean,
whole lot
well,
of soul searching and like agonizing, and
well, you left your job and opened the door for yourself. I mean, that is definitely something.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I mean, you mentioned that you were an athlete yourself, and you've done a lot. I mean, like heli snowboarding, mountain biking, surfing. There's a lot that you do and have done. Um, ha- have like where did that come from? Like where did like again, a lot of this is in these like what in those times, especially you would think of as like these young male sports, right? Like how did you
Yeah.
young male white sports, especially like how did you get into all of that?
Um, I I think I came out of my mom's belly like running. I was very active from an early age and just always on the go. I love to be active. Like I just like doing things. I've always felt like I've had this competitive personality just in general, and I was fortunate, like my parents let me sign up for whatever sport I wanted to, whatever activity I wanted to do. They were, you know, super cool, let me do it and got me to all my practices and games and meets and things like that. And so it just never stopped, right? Like I was always wanting to be involved in sports. And my dad was, you know, a big supporter, big fan, both of my parents were really, but my dad, he would always practice with me if I was, I was a pitcher when I played
Mm,
softball when I was younger. So he always, um, I'd practice pitching with him, basketball. He'd always be out there on the court with me in the evening, shooting baskets. And yeah, I just got a lot of support for my sports, which was nice.
that is nice. Has there been an evolution of your own training for yourself as you've like gone through, your 40s and into your 50s?
Yeah, so I started triathlon late, like I think I was 39, maybe it might have even been 40, 39 or 40 when I did my first triathlon. I didn't even know what a triathlon was. I was out in my, on my local trails. I was running and I went for a run one day and I saw this woman running. I met her, like I kind of caught her at the top and she says to me, oh, I knew you were going to catch me. And I was like, oh, like I mean, I saw her at the bottom when we first started. I was like stretching and doing other stuff, and she had already taken off, and then I took a phone call and all this stuff. So I don't know, but she saw me and kind of, it turns out she was a triathlete, and she said, oh, I knew I was going to catch you, or knew you were going to catch me. And then she asked me what sports I did and if I'd ever done a triathlon. And so it turns out she worked for one of the, I think it was Iron Sports. I can't remember now. It was so long ago. And she kind of started chatting with me briefly about triathlon. I was like, oh, tell me more about that. And she's like, yeah, it's biking, swimming, and running. And I was like, oh my God, I do all those things. Like, I like doing all those things. And so she's like, well, there's a race coming up next month, and I was like, ooh, well, so I tried it and like on my mountain bike, I didn't even have a proper road bike. Um, and I loved it. Like I was just hooked immediately. And then, just kind of went from there and I got a coach. I got so into it. I started training with a coach and for a couple years. And then I was like, boy, this is expensive. Everything, like I think I was doing like 10 or 11 races a season and I had
Mm-hmm.
to buy a new bike and just all this stuff. So I dropped the trainer and started training myself. And it worked. I mean, I did fairly well, training myself and I loved it. It was so fun. So I think that part has really evolved, like I started lifting weights and, as I've gotten older, realizing the importance of that, well, 10 years, hold on, 16 years ago now,
Yeah.
but, just really taking ownership of like that part. And
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry,
so
there was just like a really was there a bird?
sorry, that was a bird that just
Oh, wow. Okay, I was just
just
like,
went
"That's"
right in front of me. I was like, whoa.
yeah. It's just like yeah. So, no, it's great that you recognize the utility of resistance training at that point, because that has definitely set you up, right? Going into
Yeah, totally.
midlife and beyond
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
for strength and injury resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have you changed, we haven't talked nutrition at all, but has that evolved as well? Are you specific with your
Yeah.
nutrition?
Yeah, I mean, I am, I guess yes. The answer to that is
Yeah.
yes. I guess I struggle with it because you know, I I've always been kind of a healthy eater. I love food, like I love to eat, but I did start when I started training for triathlon, I did start paying more attention to what I was putting in my body and also like the timing of eating and all of that. And then it's just gotten over the years, the last maybe 5 or 6 years, has I've really fine tuned it. And I mean, I guess, yeah, I cut things out as as you get older, it's harder to keep the weight off.
Mhm.
And so, I look at what I eat and really try to be careful about certain things. And I just cut out like, I mean, I used to eat rice, you know, probably every other day or a lot during the week, and just starchy foods and things like that that aren't the healthiest, cream cheese, bagels, that kind of stuff. I don't really do that. Probably get a baguette every day,
Right.
eat tons of, just yeah, so just more particular about the kind of bread that I eat. I don't believe in diets and things like that. And I mean, I just believe in whole foods, eating healthy, right? Good, wholesome nutrition,
Yeah.
and making sure I get a lot of leafy greens and all the colors of the rainbow, that sort of thing. So
So you're quoted in AARP. I read an article on you in the magazine, and talking about sort of midlife women and where you are, and you said, I don't know what it is about being older than 40. People start saying things like, "Oh, I'm older, I can't do that anymore." And, you say it's never too late to discover a new adventurous side of yourself. And, I think that's starting to fade now, but I see it too. And I wonder where you think that comes from. I mean, I personally have looked at that and been like, well, what, the images that we grew up with were not adventurous, right? Like Edith
yeah.
Bunker, Weezy Jefferson, like the gold most of the Golden Girls, they were all our age, which blows my mind. But those were the
Right.
images that we had. And they
Right.
were groundbreaking women of their time, and I never want to make that like I'm belittling them because I'm not. But like we didn't see women really being what like adventuresome. And um, I wonder if we all had just had better role models, if you would see more women that weren't so afraid.
Yeah. I do think there needs to be more people. I mean, and like you said, it's starting to fade now. Like all of a sudden, like it's kind of blown up in a way, right? With adventure and like I'm seeing that word everywhere now. I feel like when I started my company, I was sports adventure, and you look up the word adventure and you'd have to dig for it, right? And now it's just all over the place, which is great. But yeah, I have a lot of, I noticed that a lot of women, in their middle ages, I feel like they want an adventure, but they don't know how to get it. They
Mhm.
don't know how to have one, right? They might, and I think a lot of people don't even understand, sometimes what that means
Yeah,
on some level, right?
yeah.
I remember having to explain to um, my nephew, like And adventure is like, it could be anything. It's what you make it, right? Like people like my family, they think, "Oh my God, you're so cool. You do all this stuff." And I'm like, "You could do all that stuff too, right?" It's just about like planning. Takes a little bit of planning on some level, but not really. I mean,
And when you
right?
do it, you find that the people that are there are just like you. And I think that
Yeah.
that's a barrier too. I think that in
Yes.
people's minds, they have this magazine cover image of what the
Yeah.
people
It's
who do those things, whether it be mountain biking or whatever, will look like. But then when you actually go to a Sparta race or you go mountain biking, or you do those things, you're like, oh,
right.
they're just people. They're just like the people that are
Yeah.
just like us doing these things. It's not this
Yeah.
stereotype model.
Right. But I think there's not, like we do a lot of, I mean, I don't know if it's extreme, but like I have a lot of clients that would be like, I'm not mountain biking. That's dangerous. Right. I
Right.
mean, I hear this all the time from women. It's dangerous. I'm like, tell me what's dangerous about it. Right. Like if you, I mean, with anything you have to learn, right? there's
Right.
a there's a skill, there's skills involved, and once you learn how to do it and you take precautions and like I teach
Start in a
skills, mountain
beginner
bike skills.
trail.
Right, exactly. You're not going to start at like some super hard trail, although sadly this is what's happened to some women that have done it, right? Like their partners have taken them on some
Oh,
crazy,
I see that happen.
ride.
Yeah.
They fall and once, right? And they're like, forget, this is ridiculous, right? But they're starting from too high of a level.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I like to do is take people on small little mini adventures, showing them how, they can get out in nature and try new things and, take like they're used to running. Like I had this one client, she just runs on the road all the time. And to me, that sounds like, why would you run? We live in like one of the most beautiful places in the world. There's trails everywhere, no people, no cars, go on a trail and run, right? But women are afraid of so many things. Like you know, I feel like every week I'm uncovering some fear that's
Yeah.
deep inside, that you don't, like have this one client who I trained her to do, she was climbing Kilimanjaro and it was amazing. It was such a transformation for her, but just getting out to hike on the trails, she had to get so many hours in, right? And she works full time. So it's like, okay, so go in the morning. And, I learned that that was a little bit fearful, right? I mean, we're
Mhm.
women, it's like, sadly, we do have to worry about these things, but it just you wonder why more women aren't adventurous. And I think there's fear on so many different levels of so many different things, right? Being by your doing this by yourself, that's another thing. There's a lot of people that want to have these adventures and they don't have anybody to do it with, you know
Yeah, you can
um
find groups, I
and
mean, I always tell
you
people
you
like
can you
yeah,
can I
yeah, you
say
can
that too to my clients. Get
yeah,
a group, you need that support, right?
yeah,
But yeah, for many, like they don't naturally like figure it out. Like what are the steps that they
yeah,
need to take to get there, right? And yeah, society paints us as these, weak women, especially in middle age, that are no fun and,
yeah, yeah.
right,
No,
aren't
and once you
strong, you know.
on and on and on, but once you start, like, I like I like having little everyday adventures. Like I'll go mountain
Me
biking,
too.
before work or in the like at lunchtime, even if I can sneak it in, or go trail running, and I can see like a red-tailed hawk and a fox, and
Yes.
I
Yes.
ride through streams, and I come back all muddy and dirty and filled with endorphins, and it's just like
Right. It's
I didn't
awesome,
go
isn't it?
anywhere. I went like 3 blocks away.
I tell you, I just went and cheered on one of my clients this weekend. Her whole family was running in a half marathon up on Mount Tam, and I had to get there early in the morning. I was thinking, oh, the roads are going to be blocked. What am I going to do? Okay, I know. I'm going to ride my mountain bike, up to the point where I have to like then go on foot. So I packed a little backpack, had my my running shoes in there, and I like locked my bike up at the top of this trail, and
I
then
love
I
it.
like went and ran to the start, like, and it was just so much fun. right? It was gorgeous weather, blue sky. It was lovely. And, earlier than I like to get up on a weekend, but I made an adventure out of it, right? Like
Yeah.
to me, that's what life is all about. I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally
So,
agree.
yeah.
So this is, as you know, a show that is started, because of menopause and the menopause transition and the challenges that women hit there that often stop them from having adventures. And I'm curious what your experience with menopause was. Where are
Ooh.
you in it? Oh,
That's a big one. Well, no, it just I've been in menopause for like 23 years. No. So I had at 32, I had to have a hysterectomy.
so that
And
is a
because I
big one.
had
Yeah,
fibroids, right? And so which I was fine with. Totally was like, take that out. I don't want to have these fibroids. And I have a son. I don't need any more kids. So that's fine with me, right? But what happened was they forced me into menopause
mhm,
early so that they could shrink the fibroids so that they could take them out vaginally instead of cutting.
right.
And so that was great, but it triggered like
Oof.
menopause symptoms for that like my entire life after that.
Yeah, wow.
So yeah, and that was what two in like 2001, 2002,
Did
somewhere
you get
around there,
hormone therapy, or
2000.
was that when they were like,
No,
"Nope"?
no,
Yeah,
nope, that was the thing. And so I have my ovaries, and I remember my doctor specifically saying, this is great, you have your ovaries, you won't
right.
need any medicine, right? You won't need any
Right.
meds. I'm like, great. But all these years I've been, less and less estrogen, right? What what no one said to me. I mean, I had gone to the doctor several times with these hot flashes. I was having hot flashes, forever, and so uncomfortable and so miserable. And they kept saying like you could try all this over the counter stuff, which I did try a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
black cohash or
Right, right.
something like that. Didn't
Yes.
work. And I also am not a person, I'm not big on supplements. I'm not big on taking medication.
Mm,
And so they offered you could go on birth control, that would help subside. And I was on birth control for 16 years,
right.
as a teenager, right? I didn't want to go that route. So it was never offered to me that, I could
Even when you
have
were
some
talking
relief,
about, oh boy.
even when I was talking about it, right? And I kept going to the doctor, like saying, "Am I in early menopause?" In my 30s, like late 30s, I was like, "I must be in early menopause. I know that's a thing. I know you can." No, you're not in early. They do some tests. No, you're
Mm.
not in early menopause. Yeah. So it wasn't until literally last year that I got
My
offered.
eyebrows just shot
Can
up.
you? Yeah, last year I'm 56, so 55 years old. There was, lo and behold, some new department at Kaiser that said they were specialty, work menopause specialists. And so I told the doctor my whole story, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, honey, oh my goodness, let me get you some relief. You need," and she offered the patch for me, a hormone patch.
Yeah.
I'm like, but it wasn't offered before, and there was all this, information saying, oh, you don't want to be on any kind of, hormone replacement. You'll have a heart attack. You'll there's all these different,
Yeah.
issues with that. So it
Um,
wasn't, yeah, in my mind, it wasn't an option, nor did I even really pursue that avenue, right? Because I
wow.
thought that, I couldn't do that, right? So
No,
yeah.
you're like a perfect candidate for it.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So so please tell me you've gotten some relief?
Yes, I have. I have, but it's still a little, I mean, I still have, hot flashes, but they're very minimal now. I mean, I
Yeah.
would be all day sweating, all day sweating. I'd wear a tank top pretty much under, everything because I never knew when I was going to have to rip off a sweater or, sweatshirt or, whatever, like in the dead of winter and be almost naked to get some relief. I mean, we're literally, I would just be sweating, like total full on sweat.
Wow.
It was awful. Yeah,
Did
it
that
was
happen at
awful.
night too? Were you able to sleep?
Oh yeah. Oh no. Oh
Oh,
no. I'm up every hour. Actually, not anymore, but I was up every
yeah.
hour. I knew it felt like a light switch that someone turned on. I could feel it before it happened. I'd wake up and then literally like maybe 20 seconds later, here comes the hot flash.
Yeah.
So it was so crazy. Like it triggered something and my eyes would open. I go, shit, I'm gonna
Yep.
take the covers off, turn the fan on. My husband bought me this chill pad. I don't know if you've
Yep.
heard of those, but yeah,
Yes.
I have a $500 chill pad. I mean, I had everything. Like nothing worked. Right. The chill pad actually did. It was a good tool, but just misery, like
God
and
bless you.
embarrassing, right? Just you're at a wedding or you're at,
Oh,
I don't know, some kind of, conference, and all of a sudden you just break out in a sweat and you're sitting close,
yeah.
in a like theater right next to somebody and you're just like, and you feel like everybody knows that you're sweating, right? And people are looking at like, what am I, everything's just shiny and wet. And I'm just like, oh my God. So yeah, it had not been pleasurable for me all these years.
I am so glad that you finally found a doctor and that times have
Yeah.
evolved enough that you could get
Yes.
relief. My lord. The
Yes.
tolerance for women's suffering in the medical community is it's just unbelievable. Like, it's
It
finally
really is.
changing, but my god, it's
Yeah.
been bad.
And thanks to you, I really appreciate all the, podcasts that you do with all this great information on menopause and perimenopause. And, people need to know what's happening with their bodies, right? Like women just don't know,
Yeah.
especially my generation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're about the same age. I'm 55, and nobody
Okay.
it just wasn't a thing. Like, people didn't
No,
talk about it. Yeah.
no, right. And they didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
So,
Whew. Alright, well, you speaking of talking about it and changes, I mean, you do work with a lot of women in this demographic now, correct? Like, this is a
yes,
yeah.
yes.
Um,
That's the majority of my clients.
you had another quote in the Daily Mail article that I read that I really, really liked, where you said that older women are sometimes drawn to hire you because they are dismayed at the way their bodies have changed. But you're clear the kind of transformation that they really need isn't a smaller pair of pants, and that their old notions of themselves change how they see themselves when they can do things on mountains and on trails. And
Yeah,
I'd really love to talk more about that, because I see so many women, and we did grow up and came up with the message that the size of our body was the most important thing about us. That is the message that we got over and over and over again, and are still getting, like, it's so ingrained. So I would
totally.
love to hear more about your thoughts on that and getting women to look at themselves
Uh,
differently.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of, of course, everybody comes to a personal trainer to lose weight and to,
Totally.
get that belly fat, especially with the, our age, right? How do I get rid of this? How do I get rid of this? And it's funny because they do start out, that way when they come, but I feel like, I get them. This is like my little secret that I mean, I tell them about it, of course, but
Yeah.
like initially they come, to get in shape and get fit. And I want them to be strong. Most of them don't lift weight or, hadn't been in the habit of lifting weights, or if they were lifting like 3 pounds. Oh yeah, I do Peloton and we lift our little 3 pound weights. I'm like, that is
Yeah.
not going to cut it. You got to lift heavier than that. So I think I really believe like it's through the weight training that
Mhm.
they start to discover, their inner strength, right?
Yep.
And a little bit sense of adventure because, they feel strong and capable. And then, I'm able to take them on like little mini adventures. I might Some clients I do other things than just in the gym. We go out for a trail run, or we even, or we'll take bands out on a trail and work out, that way. I take people mountain biking or paddleboarding or whatever. And so I think through these little mini adventures, they start to get this broader picture of,
Right.
um, you know, um, how to just how to keep their whole body healthy, right? Their mind and their body, right? And
Yeah.
when they're feeling strong and capable, I think it makes them want to seek more adventures, right? And get out
Yeah.
there and show off what they can do. Like,
And live through their bodies,
and
right?
live.
Not for
Yeah,
whatever size they're trying to be, like not
that's
for a
right.
number on the scale. Yeah.
That's right. And they start to feel more comfortable in their body. And maybe they've lost a few, pounds, or, maybe not, but they
Yeah.
feel strong.
Yep.
And then that gets them, wanting to go back to doing the things that maybe they used to do.
Yeah.
I used to ride my bike. I used to, trail run. And I'm like, did you like that? And, oh yeah, I loved it. I don't know. I just stopped after kids. And
Mm.
so, I try to get them back to doing things that they used to do and more, right?
Yeah.
Like I always like to push the boundaries just a little bit.
Well, I really appreciate your perspective and the work that you do and your spirit, your adventurous spirit. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to leave the audience with?
Um, no, I guess we covered just about everything. I'm just I love my job, and I'm really happy to have people that want to work with me. And I love I really love the adventure side of what I do, and taking people on adventures. So
Yep.
I hope, if anybody who watches this podcast and, they not quite sure how to get out there and, take themselves on an adventure, I would love to help them with that.
Excellent. I am all for it.
Yeah,
More everyday adventures. Well, thank you, Sean. I appreciate you. I wish you many adventures going forth, and thanks a lot.
great. Thank you, Celine.
Well, that's our show. Come on back next week when I sit down with Katie Linville, a registered dietitian nutritionist with Genev, and we go through all the common supplements that menopausal women often take and what you should know. So come on back for that one. And until then, as always, stay feisty. You've been listening to Hit Play, Not Pause, a feisty menopause podcast for active, performance-minded women. I'm your host, Celine Yeager. The show is edited and produced by the strong, talented, and amazing women at Live Feisty Media. Follow us on social media at Feisty Menopause, and please help us spread the word. Screenshot and share this episode on your social media channels with the tag @FeistyMenopause. Share the show with your friends, and please subscribe, like, review, and rate this show wherever you get your podcasts. Word of mouth and good reviews make it easier for other listeners to find. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay feisty.